I'd send it
Well, folks,
back and
it's,
let them do it right.
It's 8:30, it's time to start. Bill's not here yet, so how about we just get started? Or not Bill, but
Dave.
Dave, thank you.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Artisan,
Here.
Mr. Bakley,
Here.
Mr. Carter,
Here.
Mr. Dixon,
Here.
Mr. Lewis, Mr. Postles,
Here.
Mr. Shiloh,
Here.
Ms. Smith, Mrs. Smith. Okay. All right, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. All right, I need approval of the minutes for the April meeting.
Second.
Who was first?
Larry.
I'm sorry, Larry. Okay.
We have a motion on the floor and properly second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Public comment?
She's over there. Okay.
Nothing. Okay. Planning Commission Liaison Forum. This is an opportunity for the Planning Commission liaison to make any reports, comments, or findings to the Planning Commission.
I think that should have been the commissioner,
It's-
county
yeah, it's
commissioner. I
And he's
think
not coming today?
she's not.
She's not, okay.
Let
Okay,
me
number
get-
5, Terrascape Supply Showroom. Is this something that,
That's all good. That's great. Well, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Ryan Countryman. I represent Stewart Group Planning. Here to brief you on the review of the major developments that we looked at this month. So in May, we looked at 2 projects, Terrascape Supply Showroom in Freedom Township and Valley Rural Electric Training Facility in North Woodbury Township. So first up with Terrascape here, the applicant is Terrascape Supply. It's an existing landscaping business. And what they're looking to do is to add a new showroom and some parking revisions on their current site. We've got a photo here just to orient you. Nice thing about having the pointer here is the new showroom building would be approximately here where there's currently a structure that's not got siding. I don't know if it's considered an occupied structure or not, but that's one of the questions that we had on our review comments, was a little bit more information on that structure that's likely to be demolished as part of the new project. The location, I'm sure a lot of you are pretty familiar with the area, but it's a 5.7 acre parcel along Woodbury Pike Road on the west side. It's actually two parcels. There's the main parcel, which is leased from one property owner, and then there's the secondary part of the site that is leased from PennDOT. The characteristics of the site, one of the key things that makes this one a little bit interesting, as you can see on this map that was part of the application materials, is that you've got Halter Creek that comes along, making up the kind of southwest edge of the property line. A portion of the existing Terrascape Supply property is within the floodplain. The proposed building is just outside and above the base flood elevation, so it's the new building isn't a flooding concern based on that base flood elevation information, but it is important to note that part of the property is in the floodplain, and that's one of the comments that we had made when during the review, is that the project narrative described the entire site as being outside the floodplain, which wasn't exactly accurate. It's the proposed work is outside the floodplain, but not the entire property. The new development itself, we've got highlighted there where the proposed new showroom building would go. That replaces this kind of open-sided structure that's adjacent to this building. Then you've got existing buildings here, down here, up in here. So they've got several buildings on the site. It's hard to see on this because the line width that they used, but the new structure would also include a 50-foot by 14-foot pergola structure. It's kind of extending to the side of the building where there's currently some parking. Looking a little bit closer in at how this fits in with the property itself, this is just kind of routine infill commercial development on an existing site. As I mentioned already, the new building would be above the base flood elevation, which is one of those considerations. It's pretty important looking at permits. And there's no changes to the proposed accesses to Woodbury Pike. So you've got two existing, one concrete entrance here and another one here. On this, one of the things that is maybe a little bit hard to read at this scale, but this notation here of 16 feet between the sidewalk and the parking is one of the reasons why we commented in the review comments that it may be necessary for the applicant to show where the fire lanes are for the site, because the fire code requires a 20-foot fire lane to circulate around the buildings. If designed properly, this walkway could be included in that fire lane, but we didn't have enough information on those specs. So that was just something that we'd recommended that the township take a closer look at, because it may not be an issue, but with this concrete billboard pad here and the location of the proposed parking, we don't have all the dimensions to see whether this front access right now, which is currently just a big open gravel area, would still qualify as a fire lane. My guess is if it doesn't, they'll probably still be okay with circulation around the building. But that's one of the things that when we look at permits, we like to make sure that we're not speculating that they've met all the criteria and conditions that they actually have shown us that they have. So our recommendations, some of these things I've already kind of touched on a little bit here, but a little bit of clarification on the building uses, primarily the open-sided structure, whether that was previously counted as an occupied building where they would have parking on site for that or not, just to make sure that the calculations work out that way. There's a little bit of internal inconsistency on their material about how much of the site is actually being disturbed. Disturbance includes the new building and also some of the utility rework that would take place for that building and the redoing the parking areas. The material submitted just talked about the main parcel, which was owned by a private individual that they leased from, but because they also have some of their property is leased from PennDOT, it may be necessary for their terms of their lease with PennDOT to also get that approval there. And then talked about the fire lanes, and then finally it's up to the township to go through the rest of the saldo and make sure that it complies with their requirements. For your purposes of looking at consistency with the Allegheny's ahead comprehensive plan, didn't really see anything in that plan that directly addresses commercial infill development generally. That's something that plans favor because it's economic development. In this case, the closest thing that we could come up with that was related to the plan was that the plan does encourage retention of agricultural uses and terrascape supplies kind of on that border in an industry where they would be buying a lot of nursery stock from local agricultural areas and selling out. But it's not a perfect fit. That's just trying to make something close for any findings that you might need to. And then the plan also talks about collaboration and coordination with emergency services. And so that's part of why making comments about the fire lane and the flood hazard risks and making sure it's above the base flood elevation is important. Your staff will probably appreciate an application that has all the correct information as far as floodplain stuff later, because there's this periodic reporting and things that the county has to do to FEMA. And I don't know your local FEMA region people here, but if it's anything like FEMA people that I've worked with in other locations, it can take a long time if they aren't satisfied with the information on their plans. So that completes our review on the Terrascape Supply Showroom. Before we move to Valley Rural Electric, were there any questions on that project?
We go back to the plan, please.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to recommend that we put in an entrance and an exit sign because of this parking. This is going to be one way through here. You don't want to come into this exit here and try to park backwards into an angled space. And this is a nightmare trying to get in and out of here, but that's beside the point. But I think that they should have entrance and exit so that you're circulating around the site this way or you're circulating around the site this way.
So the recommendation, if I understand, is to include some language for the township regarding signage for entrance and exit and circulation
Correct.
within the site. Okay.
The parking area there is very confusing.
It is, but I don't think you're going to solve that. But the fact that they have angled spaces means that you're only going to be able to, I mean, ideally you want to drive into the angled space from one direction. And I assume that the engineer has calculated the backup distance between here and that's within, that seems pretty tight. And that's probably why they have the angled spaces, because this is pretty tight here. So I don't know, is that supposed to be 24 feet or 15? You know, what is the, I think it might be normally in a orthogonal parking lot where you're coming in 24 feet between the aisle space between something. I don't know, it looks tight to me. I think that's something we should check to make sure that somebody can back into that space and back out without hitting the building and driving over the sidewalks.
Yeah, because if you're
There's that
coming,
shrubbery there.
if you're coming in this way, that's not an issue. But I agree, when you're coming this direction, you'd probably have to go all the way around the building, in which case you just park in some of the other parking that's on the site.
Yeah.
Is there any concern of, I know at least historically they've sold organic material like mulch, and you know they're in a floodplain, the site slopes to Halter Creek. Is there any concerns like DEP of any kind of leaching of any type of, you know, I know a lot of, you know, typically mulch, they sell black mulch that's dyed, they sell red mulch that's dyed. You know, it would seem like the appropriate time to address that.
Yeah, so when looking at that for this review, the scope of what we were looking at was primarily the proposed work itself and changes on the site, not the existing conditions. But there may be an opportunity for what you're suggesting, which would be to say, look, you know, if there's an issue with the existing conditions, then as part of approval for the project, then maybe some changes in operation might be appropriate. Does that seem like a fair summary?
Just raising the concern and
Yeah.
assuming that this is the time to address it if we're going to address it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I didn't even consider that. I think that's a great question.
Any other thoughts or questions on this project? Okay, well, next up is going
Just you'll have to do a motion to.
Oh.
Yes, everybody.
Sorry. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved.
Okay.
Valley Rural Electric.
Valley Rural Electric Training Facility. So in this case, the applicant is Valley Rural Electric. They're being represented by EADS on the permits. The project itself is a new 16,000 square foot training facility that would go in behind their existing building, and included with the new training facility, which would be almost basically taking this driveway extension and putting the new building back here in the parking. They've got 21 parking spaces for the new building, and then also a stormwater facility, an infiltration gallery over in this portion of the site. And we'll get to that in some of the other slides. So this one is located in North Woodbury Township, off of Cove Mountain Road. We have the address for the existing building. The new building will have to coordinate with Blair County GIS to get the address for the new building. It's on the south side of the road. The total property is about 30 acres, but for the project itself, there'd be about 6.2 acres of site disturbance. What this shows here is the new building that I've got highlighted with the driveway extension up to the new building, and then this is where the infiltration basin would be over here. They also, for stormwater, propose infiltration trenches alongside the roadway, which would do some conveyance and also some of the groundwater infiltration while the water's being conveyed. This site itself, as I mentioned, it's a little over 30 acres. It's got the existing building. Here's a street view of what the current VREC building looks like and what the access that would go back to the new building looks like. Most of the property that's not currently used by the current building is actually leased to some farmers that just cultivate the land. And all the drainage on the property currently flows to an agricultural ditch, which eventually makes it over to Clover Creek. Some details on the building. Here it's just a one-story building with 21 assigned parking in the paved area. The lighter gray is a gravel area around the building, so that's where equipment might get stored and other things, but also any overflow parking if they ever need that. The infiltration basin's fairly large, but that's based on accounting for the extension of the roadway, the new building, and just the soil conditions there. And then you've got infiltration happening along both sides of the drive aisle coming up to the building. So as far as how this works with the rest of the property and the current building up in here, the new building will just extend the existing access to Cove Mountain Road. The infiltration facility is designed to cover 6.03 of the 6.2 total acres, which leaves a little over a quarter acre in two small bypass basins. What that means is that with the topography lines that you're seeing here, kind of coming around the site, that there's a little bit that would drain off this way and a little bit that would drain back this way that would not be routed to that new infiltration basin. And based on stormwater compliance, that's what the bypass basins get counted as. So as far as approvals, this would be done through North Woodbury Township reviewing its own saldo, but the only really comments that we had is that the address for the new building should be established before the permit gets final approval. PennDOT may need to review the existing highway occupancy permit because you're adding additional traffic to Cove Mountain Road. The NPDS requirements should be confirmed by Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection because of the total volume here. And we're not double checking the engineering calculations. We're just looking to see if the site plan is reasonable. And then North Woodbury Township would do the final approval. So as far as the actual plans themselves, we don't have any recommended changes, just some small information like the addressing and stuff that should be gathered before the final plans are approved. As far as consistency with the Alleghenies Ahead regional plan, the one observation is that the plan does give priority to agriculture in the region, and that this facility would take a little over 6 acres out of agricultural production. But going through the plan, we didn't see that there was anything in the plan that actually precludes conversion of agricultural land to other uses. It's just encouraged to protect agriculture, so that's something to consider. And that is for consistency with the surrounding area. You've got a lot of agricultural supportive businesses that sell and maintain equipment that are immediately to the east of the site. So it fits in with the neighborhood as far as the built look, but it is that ag use that would no longer be in production there. And on the other side is that the plan talks about coordinating with various types of infrastructure, and Valley Rural Electric is an important part of the infrastructure. And if they see a need to add a training facility, this would seem to be a pretty good location since it's adjacent to their other facility there. So to sum that up, we didn't see any real direct conflicts with the comprehensive plan, just a couple of things to note. And those things are definitely open to somebody's interpretation, but there was nothing that was objectively in conflict with the plan. So that concludes the review of Valley Rural Electric Training Facility. Any questions or comments?
Doesn't seem to be any questions.
All right, well, that's an easy audience.
Do you wanna, no, I was just
I can't,
gonna say to give it a motion.
yeah. If there's no questions, we'll need a motion on this.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. This number 7 is, we've got 5 items here that the staff has already looked at, and if there was any problems, they would have probably gotten back to the office. There is one here, Woodbury Township subdivision. I think this gentleman over here on my left is going to have to refrain from. So we'll take the other 4 in one motion, and then the last one in a separate motion, so that he can abstain from judgment. So I need a motion on the staff level review items.
So moved. First 4?
I got a motion on the floor
For the first
for
4.
the first floor, right? For the first 4. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Okay, we need a motion on the Woodbury Township Jane Ray subdivision, Fairview Road.
So moved.
I have a motion on the floor. Need a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? So moved.
Okay, so number 8, thank you, Ryan, I appreciate that. Number 8 on your agenda is the Taylor Township zoning ordinance amendment. This is a proposed ordinance amendment that would reduce the minimum required lot size from 2 acres to 1 acre for a lot that is not currently served by public sanitary sewer or public water facilities. As far as the environmental impacts are concerned, we did not anticipate any negative long-term environmental impacts as a result of amending this ordinance. And overall, the concept is consistent with our comprehensive plan. Smaller lots, it opens things up for more and different types of development, so.
Question, Mackenzie. In that, in their ordinance, do they require 2 sites for on-lot septic? Some ordinances, when they start to shrink the size of the lot down, they require a primary and a secondary on-lot septic site. And most of the smallest ones I've seen, maybe you've seen some other ones, are 1.5 acres.
Yeah.
Don't drop below 1.5 acres for that reason, because it gets difficult to build a house, build anything, and have 2 septic sites.
I will note that. That is good information. Thank you.
Because septic systems don't last forever.
You said 2 septic sites.
So it's no Rayford Day.
I have a question on that. It almost seems like the opposite of what you would expect. You know, if somebody wanted to build a home on a 1 acre, and they had public water and public sewer, you know, they wouldn't need to be providing those things on that 1 acre. But, you know, if they're saying that, you know, to reduce the minimum lot size for somebody that has to have a well and a septic, it almost seems like the opposite of what I would have thought anyway.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at,
Yeah.
is a lot of the existing ordinances that I've dealt with have a size limit based on having the ability to have a primary septic location and then a secondary if that first system ever fails, and then you have to have at least, by DEP requirements, 100 foot of separation between an on-lot septic and a well. So you start to run out of real estate really quickly. I mean, I'm not trying to stop development, but most of at least the several that I have seen, limit them to 1.5 acres instead of 1 acre, to give more room to be able to get all of that stuff in, plus have the development.
Then in those cases, do they have to designate on the plan the areas of the 2 septic systems?
I know one township does, for certain, that I do a fair amount of work in. They actually want probe holes and perk test holes done, 2 sets of them. Not saying all townships are that way, but I do know of one for certain that requires both.
Also makes me wonder if there was a resident that wanted to build on 1 acre that had public sewer and public water, why would that continue to be restricted? You know, that would be the easier one of the 2, I would think.
Do you think we should just write a letter of recommendation to suggest what that is saying instead of approving this? Just say, here, we think this might not be a good idea.
I definitely think including the information about what you had said with minimum lot requirements and what is working and what we've seen, I think that information is extremely pertinent, and I will definitely include those recommendations and those comments. Yeah, absolutely. I took good notes, so I have good comments to make.
Should we make a motion then to table this and have them come back with, or not, or I don't know what action we should have.
They're just asking for our recommendation at this point, so we
Just
put that in
a
as a recommendation, they either
not
take it
voting
or
on
pitch it.
I'm not familiar with the area in Taylor Township, but there's no public sewer water available.
For most of it, I would say
Yeah.
not. Probably right around Roaring Spring.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. That's going to tie the other acre up to.
I move we authorize Mackenzie to respond with the comments noted.
Okay.
What are you tabling or approving it?
So is that in the form of a motion then?
I did move, yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a motion.
Second?
To approve it?
Yeah.
With
Well,
those
with the
comments?
recommendation.
To respond with her
Respond
recommendation.
with the recommendations of.
Okay, so it was, I'm sorry, who was second?
Jim,
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved.
Okay, number 9 are the Metropolitan Clearinghouse reviews that you have received in your email. I think I sent 2 out in the month of May, so you should have received these in your email. These are just permits, and I believe most of them are permits. We have a couple in here for grant funding for what are these? The small water and sewer grants, as well as I know I myself wrote the letter of support for Annis Township's community park. They applied for a greenways grant, and yeah, we wrote a letter of support for that to assist their community park. And I know Wes also has a letter of support on here for the same grant for the city of Altoona for Beale Avenue.
Beach.
Beach Avenue? Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong permit. Beach Avenue's park. You should have those in your packet as well, those 2 letters of support.
There's no question.
No, these have all been received by email, so if you don't have any questions, I think we can just.
Need a motion on.
I think so, just to approve staff actions from the past month.
Right.
But these have been sent out for review.
So moved.
So we have a motion on the floor
Ben?
and second, and all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Treasurer's report.
All right, let's pass those out. Pass those out.
I think you're supposed to take one.
Apologize, I've had a rough day and a half here.
We can share.
You missing one yet?
We need,
You got it.
we need more.
One more?
They did.
I got one more.
Oh, I'm not, hold on. You guys need-
No, you need to talk to them, not us.
We can share. Is that the last one?
That's the last one.
We can share.
Yeah.
Here's a copy of this.
There's
More important than using
I can read them.
2 sheets. First is the budget, which we try to present in May so we can look at it harder in June. This is preliminary to the point where I almost hesitate passing it out. The number of the numbers that the number of the sources I count on to prepare this have changed because of changes at the federal level. However, this is a stab at where we are. Overall, we're proposing to hold the local share base at 60 cents, which will still be 45 cents for the general and the 14.18 for the equal share number. At this point, I gave the second sheet. I'll hold that for a moment. The stormwater grant is now in here, and the remainder of the hazard mitigation grant will be carried over to spend off the balance of that. One of the headaches I've had this year has been trying to figure out, we usually use the CPIU to determine salaries. We used to have a number for CPIU for each MSA in the country. Those apparently have now been consolidated regionally, and I'm still trying to see if there is one for the MSA. However, the number that is in there is based on a CPIU of 3%, which is for the Mid-Atlantic region, which is the closest I can get for us. So the number that's on there reflects that number. Now you'll see it's a 3% and the number goes down. That's because we don't have a staff person that we used to have. So, and there's not plans to fill that at this point. So that's why that goes down. Health coverage at this point is looking to go up 12% this year. I did not yet receive the comparison grids. If we get a comparison grid and there's similar coverage for less amounts, we'll be bringing that back next month. But at this point, the apples to apples comparison, which is basically the policy we have now carrying forward into next year, is a 12% increase. The disability and life and ADD insurance, once again, is being held even. I don't believe, since we've switched to Guardian, that has gone up. So that's pretty much where we are with that. The professional services number, you'll notice, is up a little bit. I held the number for the time being. I'm chewing on, after I got into this, I'm chewing on redoing those numbers a little bit in terms of how they're categorized to better reflect our different contracts. So that may come back next month, split out a little better, or that number will be bumped up. But for the time being, I just held it where it is. The development review fee I skipped over. That's this other sheet here. We have not looked at these for 2 years. We've held the line on them. This is basically a print off of what is on the currently published out on the website. So we can have a discussion on the application fee information side if you want. The budgetary side is on the flip side. These fees are 2 years old at this point. They have historically been holding. They've been covering our needs. I just wanted to point them out. I want another invoice, another month's worth of invoicing from Stewart Group. These are covering what we pay them. So I want to make sure we're charging enough to cover them. And I also want to make sure we're not charging so much that we're, I don't want to milk the public if Stewart Group's charging us for 75% of these fees. And we could drop them if we need to. I think we're still pretty close in terms of where we need to be. Excuse me. But if there's any feedback on the fees, I'm all ears. We can always tweak them. Note the star there right above the municipal local share line. Fees for all projects, municipalities that are not current local share will be increased by $250. We have historically slightly subsidized our reviews with the local share. If you're not paying your local share, we'll bump the fees up by $250 per application to cover that. It's just a flat rate, makes it easier to do. That's the budget in a nutshell. Again, we usually go through it in a lot more detail next month. This lets you digest a little bit. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to call or email me. And we can go from there. There are a couple contracts we're going to have to vote on here next on the item or next on the agenda. The flip side of this, I know we've had discussions before on the requirements that we have for people bringing things in. We typically need to rely on what the townships and boroughs require. It's their ordinances we're reviewing on their behalf. This is out there. It does give the engineering and surveying firms an idea of what we would like to see in terms of applications coming through. And again, as you're looking through that, if there's something you see missing, we can add it in. If there's something in here that doesn't make sense or seems to be overkill for our level of review, we can certainly pull it out. However, historically, again, we rely on the local subdivision ordinance in terms of what's actually on the plan. That's the ordinance that's actually ordained. We are a reviewer on behalf of the municipality that actually holds the ordinance. But I figured while I was printing the one part of it out, I might as well print the rest of it out. But that's pretty much in a nutshell where we are at this point. Any opening questions? Like I said, we usually go through it harder in June.
I see we have a line item for liability insurance. What would you describe our liability is, and what portion of that is actually covered by this insurance?
We have very low liability. It tends to be things that would, like accidents in the office, things like that. We're a recommending body, so like decisions here and all like that likely would not be impacted by that. It's a discussion we've had in the past as to how robust we want to be with that. It's a discussion we can have again as we get more and more into things. But our liability is just a general liability, the typical general liability policy with an umbrella policy attached to it as well.
And what are those limits?
$1 million, I believe.
A million coverage and $1 million umbrella?
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't hurt
To look at it. It's been a few years since we've
to see
actually
what an
looked at it
increase
hard.
would cost.
Yeah. We actually kicked around totally redoing the insurance package. I believe it was right before COVID. And with everything else going on, it kind of, everybody was somewhat satisfied with it at the time. But yeah, COVID's 5 years out now, so it's probably time to look at it. We can do that. So we go through Gingrich, and they usually take pretty good care of us.
So this is what we hand out to,
That's what's on the website, and yeah, that's what's been handed out if somebody asks for a hard copy.
so it says any supplemental information such as the following may also be included in the review, but not required to be included?
We can't.
Can't
As far as
require?
I know, we can't require. It's not our ordinance.
I see.
It'd be nice to. But I've asked around, and other counties have the same problem. They get stuff on rags and things like that. It's not. Now, if the county has its own ordinance, and they're enforcing their own ordinance, or they're enforcing on behalf of the municipality, that's different. But where it's set up like ours, it's been difficult.
Sure.
We actually just discussed this at a CPDAP meeting. And people, it's very frustrating when you have to
Dave.
yeah.
Dave McKenzie, do we even need a hard copy?
I've asked that. Yeah, we leave the hard copy in, and we could make it a may, just because there are a couple smaller surveying firms in particular that I'm not sure they know how to create a PDF. I'll leave it at that. That we, of course, I haven't seen them for a while, so I guess maybe they may not be around. But
I mean, can it be added to this that a hard copy is acceptable, but a digital copy is preferred?
yeah.
Absolutely, I think that's we changed the application package, and that's the one that was changed effective January 1st. We changed things to include that I believe they must submit digital copies or a PDF file of the plan for that reason, because we have, we keep the actual physical copies stored at the office, but as you know, that quickly turns into so we have been starting a filing system on our SharePoint where we are keeping everything a lot more organized on there, and it's really nice. So we are trying to encourage digital copies, but for those who absolutely can't, we usually can scan, but for big plans, it's not easy.
So in other words, you're telling me just send you the electronic copy?
If possible.
Don't worry about that. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Hit send.
I don't.
I love that idea.
Yeah. That works for me.
No.
Okay.
The other reason we do both is some of the townships insist on that paper feel that they know they've delivered us something.
Yes.
And they know it. So yeah, there's that.
No, I'll just say from a consultant standpoint, it's when you're used to sending everything straight to you. Now you got to go get the letter from the township to include with it to send it in. Then
So
some of the townships will just email me their generic letter with the project name in it, and that makes it simple. But
we've had that, and then we've had a lot of the opposite, which is the engineers sending the whole project to the municipality, and then when they're ready to send their letter and have it sent on, which is how the MPC says to do it, is to have the engineer submit to the municipality. The municipality is the submission to us, but that doesn't always work out that way. And like you said, it's definitely not realistic in the kind of work that we're doing. So we're pretty flexible with that, but we've had good luck working directly with the municipalities too.
some of the rural municipalities just say take care of it.
Take care of it,
Yeah,
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 absolutely.
They don't want anything.
Absolutely.
They don't even want to see it. send an electronic copy to the township engineer, send an electronic copy to the planning commission. When they all come back and say it's good, here's
We'll
your
let you
permit.
know.
Yeah, that's how some of the rural ones
Yeah.
are, which are my favorite ones.
Same.
Number 11, Guardian Insurance. It's time to renew our Guardian. It's the exact same thing from last year. I just need a motion to authorize executing it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor, properly seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. The IT contract.
Yes, the IT contract. The executive committee, we talked about looking at some of the contracted services we have, IT being one of them. We looked at, we started with PC Works. They were bought out and changed to UDNI a couple years ago. And we're in the courthouse. The courthouse uses RBA. And on the courthouse infrastructure, we use their infrastructure to communicate with the outside world. And frankly, even to communicate inside the office, it's still courthouse infrastructure. And when something goes wrong, I don't know if those of you remember the early 80s when they broke up Ma Bell. And it's the local company's problem. No, it's the long distance company's problem. No, it's the phone on your wall. It's the problem. And you got to figure out where the problem is. And nobody can figure out what the problem is because nobody wants to touch the other person's equipment. So RBA gave us a quote, which actually happens to be quite a bit cheaper. Our average with UDNI is around $700. The UDNI quote is coming in, and that's monthly.
RBA.
The RBA quote is coming in just shy of $450, $444 a month. That's what they're estimating the average will be. So the services look to be about the same, and it will be more seamless if something goes wrong. They're right down the hall, quite literally. So it seems to be a good deal all around. So I'd like a motion to switch that over, authorization to sign.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved.
And then the last one is the UPMC. That is a 12% increase over last year. Other than that, it holds the same. And this is, again, I did not get any comparisons. I'd like a motion to authorize. If I get the comparisons, I'll bring them back here and we'll change it. But for the time being, we're down to the end again, like we typically get. So it'll be a 12% increase over last year.
We have time to make the change if necessary.
Yeah, they've done that before. We've done this before. And we actually changed it in the middle of July once. So yeah.
So we want to make a motion to let Dave look around.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
David, do you mind me asking how many employees is our business?
Oh, it's basically
5
Rhonda, everybody here. Yeah, it's me, Rhonda, Sherry, Wes, and Rhonda.
And one spouse.
Yeah, there's one spouse on there.
Well, I wasn't. That's a sort of a second question of how many people we cover, but the total employees.
On the policy? it's
No,
4.
no, in our business, five
Yeah.
employees, and all of them are covered through this.
No, I'm not.
No, he's
You're
I
not.
have a different agreement.
Okay,
I get cash in lieu
okay.
So there's
because I have a health condition that I go to a doctor that the insurance won't cover them. So
Okay.
I take the cash in lieu.
You okay, Todd? There's no.
I was just interested if,
No, yeah.
So are we actually, we have our own EIN number.
Mhm.
We're essentially our own business.
Yeah, we are
Okay.
our own thing.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
I can't say it's unique, but it's not common. Although it is getting more common. There's 3 or 4 more counties in the last 10 years that have actually switched to this model. But it was us and Mercer for the longest time. We were the only two like this.
Okay, so that motion is so moved. Dave?
Okay. I was at the Senate Transportation Committee meeting yesterday, which happened to be in Altoona. Very interesting discussions. They're trying to figure out how to fund basically the transportation system in Pennsylvania. We're sort of at a crossroads, and the state legislature, frankly, has some pretty significant decisions to make. So they got testimony ranging from Penn State's rail degree here to Tracy out at the airport to Steve McKnight to a couple secretaries from I think it was the Secretary of DCD and Secretary of the DOT, just pulling information together, trying to get their head around how to fund things going forward. It was interesting in that everybody approached it positively, and everybody approached it from a multimodal perspective. So even if you were a railroad person or an airport person or whatever, they recognized that they weren't an island unto themselves. If you're going to the airport, you need a way to get to the airport. If you're out in the road, there's more to the road than just the car. There's sidewalks and pipes underneath even and things like that. So it was an overall good hearing. I came away with a positive feeling on everybody's positive. There's very little in the way of complaint. So we're potentially going to see some changes there. They are recognizing some of the critical areas we're at in terms of especially transit funding. SEPTA is one of the best transit systems in the country. They're looking at something like 40% cuts given the current situation financially. They don't have a good source of funding. The airports, with the possible elimination of EAS, are sort of in the same boat. I guess there's a proposal now to do a trust fund for the airports that would be a pot of money that's dedicated to airports. Our airport is doing fine. I'll let Tracy present what's going on to his board, and they can do the public release on that. But our airport seems to be doing very well this year, and there's some exciting developments out there as well. The overall hearing, like I said, went very well, and we're excited for that. The other thing from this past month was the CPDAP meeting, talking about some of the issues that are facing communities generally. A lot of them are intersecting with planning. There is starting to be a push to rethink completely how we approach development regulation. And that includes the whole gamut from subdivision to zoning to building code to floodplain to stormwater, everything. I guess over half the states now have created an entirely different approach where instead of having these siloed types of regulations, they're making a comprehensive whole out of it. And Pennsylvania is starting to look at that. There's a couple.
That means more expertise looking at the same thing.
That
That means
could be.
multiple expertise looking at a single saldo, at a single order.
Yeah.
Sounds like a mess to me.
There's a couple groups looking at doing that. Some of it is too that as we age out, we are having more and more difficulty, particularly in the rural areas, getting that expertise to cover some of these ordinances that are, you have the option to do zoning, you have the option to do subdivision land development even. You even have the option to do your own building code, but most people, even if they opt in, hire a third party to take care of that issue. But you don't have an option to do stormwater, you don't have an option to do floodplain and some of these other things. And some of those are highly technical, and those are the areas where things are falling apart. So there is, and I'm saying this is 5-10 years out, but people are starting to look at a complete redo of how we approach our ordinances. anybody who understands our state legislature understands that's going to be 2 or 3 sessions at a minimum after it's introduced, before anything really passes, unless some drastic thing happens that forces it otherwise. The other thing that came out of that meeting that is of more urgent concern, but it's related, is they are now doing floodplain and flood regulation audits. They're going to be touching every municipality. They're going county by county. They are doing 11 counties per year. They started this year with a pilot, which was not 11 counties. It was just a handful. They are starting next year, which is a month from now, with 11 counties right around, it's kind of the comma around Dauphin County. They're ignoring the 5 counties in the southeast for right now because of something that's going on down there with international projects coming in and things like that. But the 11 counties around Dauphin County, basically. And then the following year, they're either going to the 11 counties to the north of that or the 11 counties to the west of that, which is us. And then the year after that, they'll do the opposite, is the plan right now. So we basically were put on notice that the audit is coming for floodplain. So we'll need to make sure our municipalities are informed of that and up to snuff on it in terms of what may or may not be expected.
I'm missing something here. How do they expect township supervisors to deal with this?
That's part of the problem.
What was your question, Blair?
I mean, I remember when township supervisors couldn't spell subdivision land development in my time.
You want to know how they even deal with this, and how they have the capacity, and the capacity is part of the issue. They used to do this back in the day, back when the flood program started back in the 80s and 90s. Apparently, they used to go around and randomly pick people. The flood administration at state level went from DCA to DCED. It is now in PEMA, and PEMA is trying to they're trying to get a program in place where it's just a rolling, every 5 or so years you're going to expect this audit. That's why they're trying to do 11 counties or so at a time. There will just be this rolling audit, and they want to get it, so they're doing municipality by municipality, but they're doing it at on a county basis. So they'll come to Blair County. I'm speculating here, but this is kind of how I had it pictured in my mind after the meeting. They'll come to Blair County and say, "Hi, we're coming to Blair County. We're going to be here on July 2nd. Everybody, please show up at the convention center. We're going to have a meeting, and we'll be working with you, to get everybody oriented. Then we'll be working with you individually." Like I said, this year they're doing, I believe it was Dauphin County, and the counties that were hit with the flooding problems with the storms last year, the year before, up in, I think, Potter County, that area up there. So that's what they started with. And they are finding, especially in the rural areas, it's a secretary and 3 supervisors, and they're just not up to snuff on it. It's just too technical for the abilities and frankly for the time they have to
I
deal
remember
with
when
it.
they first put the floodplain ordinances in place back then, and I assume it's still the same, they were a little fuzzy.
Yeah, it's fuzzy.
Very
Yeah, you're trying to represent.
They need to make them consistent across everything.
Yeah.
And that's where even stormwater ordinances from township to township can
They
vary
change. Yeah.
dramatically.
Mhm.
And some of them, especially if you go down toward the southeastern part of our DEP region, they don't even match what the DEP regulations are. That the stormwater ordinances don't coincide.
Right.
And it's all depending on a township engineer and a township solicitor and how much money they want to try and make off of the township. That's my personal opinion. But there needs to be some consistency.
Mhm.
It makes it easier for consultants. It would make it easier for townships and supervisors and secretaries to understand everything when everybody was getting the same training, everybody was getting the same answer.
Mm-hmm. And you're not doing that anymore. Yeah.
Everyone is different.
Even with the model ordinances. So it did come out the meeting, the average review time for a subdivision, this does not include zoning, floodplain, stormwater, building code, for a subdivision in Pennsylvania is 173 days. So it's not an easy process, especially when you get in some of these areas where if they're seeing how much they can milk out of you each time you go through it.
What a can of worms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Trying being a consultant, trying to mud through the process, and when you get it down in this township, you go to that township and you do the same same type of project, and it's a totally different set of rules.
And then you start next to them. And then the government steps in and says, oh, no.
Oh, but we're here to help.
Okay, well, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I have a friend down in the southeast, down near where I grew up, and he said from the time he works on the consultant side, he said from the time that somebody comes in and says, I want to do X, Y, Z, assuming they're building something new, from the time they sign that contract to the time they actually get to move into the building is 3.5 to 4 years. And that's down in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3.5 to 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a project that we got through the state, through the DEP, and this is in Lancaster County. I was the third engineer to try and get the project through. I got through the DEP, and the project fell apart, and there's been, I know, 3 other engineers work on it since then, trying to continue it on.
Yeah.
Where the farmer has thrown his hands up in the air more times than
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you can shake a stick
The
at.
system is broken.
Yeah,
And we just
it
need to
is.
admit the system is broken, and whether that comprehensive rewrite is the way to go, or we just tweak the existing ordinances or the existing statutes to match what we've evolved into a new reality is I don't know what the answer is necessarily, but
It's too many.
I think it does need to be studied and looked at and
You
corrected.
got it.
It just
You got
appears
it.
they're imposing more specific functions
Mhm.
on the townships that they're probably not prepared to deal with.
Right.
Over half of them aren't qualified to
Right.
make any statements at all.
Just a question that relates to your report and also the budget. I noticed that you had a line item for interns, and then it said not this year. And we're kind of talking about the lack of qualified, willing. Would there be a benefit to young whatever engineering students or people that are interested in government? Would we potentially be doing our county and the world a service by putting an intern in place, some young person that could learn from what you're doing, what's happening here, maybe a township supervisor someday, maybe somebody that works, I mean, would we want to consider?
I'd love to do interns. I'd like to support that. Our problem with the interns has historically been finding housing for them.
You might find somebody that's local, from
Yeah,
and that would be
we
better.
we used to budget for interns every year, and it was always you hire somebody if they work locally or they live locally, they're already here. We could move them in. I think the last interns we had were
It's before my time.
17, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was 2017 when Jordan and all were here.
Yeah.
And Claire.
That's
But
not-
would we consider offering an internship and see who
Yeah,
applies?
If I was asked for one, we would consider doing something like that. But yeah, I could set something up and look at it and see. I'm not opposed to it at all.
You got a lot of expertise here, and
Right.
if we don't pass it on to the next
Yeah,
generation,
it's lost.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
The second I'm sorry, Sherry. did you
I was
want-
just going to say that Mackenzie has presented to her class when she was doing her master's program at Juniata. So she's presented numerous times.
UPJ.
Or I'm sorry, UPJ. Numerous times to class to try to get them involved. She's coming back here. She might be able to lend a hand to kind of what came out of that and trying to put the wavelengths out there to get people involved in that.
Yeah, I'm on the statewide professional development committee too, so I kind of have fingers in things like that. But like I said, I'm not opposed to it at all. It's just historically, for the last number of years, we just haven't considered it.
And if we had an intern, would we be able to put an item in the budget? Would if it's a summer college internship, would we, could we come up with $10,000 to stipend someone like that?
So I put you on the spot and said that you had presented to your college class about trying to get her involvement. He was asking about interns, so I'd said that you had presented to quite a few classes.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest in, I've only gone to UPJ, I haven't gone anywhere local here. But there is a lot of interest in kind of that like cross-functional, like learning. So I think that if we were to get an intern, we probably wouldn't have, or we shouldn't, well, we say we wouldn't, but we shouldn't have trouble finding someone interested, but we just have to find work for them. But
We
it
gotta
shouldn't
find a
be
place
hard.
to put them. That's always been the problem, is the house.
But you volunteered your office, so that would be perfect. I said you volunteered your office.
Yeah. But when you say a place to put them, did you mean office space or did you mean housing?
Housing.
Housing.
Yeah, but I mean, there's, so let's start the process with Penn State, Juniata, UPJ, and, St. Francis, and see who's around here, Maybe there's somebody that doesn't need housing.
We possibly thought about purchasing some housing. It could be used for different things like that, but never materialized.
I mean, I think the other option becomes, we offer an internship with a stipend, and maybe there's somebody from Philadelphia that is seeking to apply, and they recognize there's no housing. Well, they either don't submit the application, or they recognize that, okay, that's part of the deal. I only get $10,000 and I got to pay for my own apartment or something, But I mean, I don't think that should be the reason we don't try, And I would guess that there would be some local people that would be willing to apply. I don't know. We'll find out. Well, but ultimately, to do that, I think you'd have to get a some job description process in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have a description for an intern. But the issue with the intern too is what do we, it's somewhat project dependent on what's going on at the time.
Sure.
And so matching them with what we're doing at the time, which this year we could probably do, given some of what's going on. So yeah, I'll look at it and make some phone calls.
How long does an intern usually stay?
12 weeks.
12 weeks. You might want to contact some of the motels and hotels to see if you could strike up an agreement with them. That if you got something for 12 weeks, that they would give you a reduced
deal.
rate.
Yeah.
About Penn State campus dorms.
If it's their own student,
It's their own student.
they will not house other students. Yeah, it's one of the first places we went when we started having this trouble. Say, can we pull a favor here? They won't do it, and it has to go with insurance and regular.
Second item, based on your report, was you mentioned about the transportation committee that you had attended. I don't know if this is completely outside of the type of things that we do, but just last week or 2 weeks ago, Snyder Township voted to deny Amtrak to Snyder Township. And I thought, for $2,600, what a terrible decision that was. I mean, the busing service was willing to make 2 or 3 stops in Snyder Township to pick up and deliver residents, and that they didn't see a reason to pay that. Would we, as a planning commission, want to send them a recommendation to say, please, reconsider, or please, let's do a study to see how many people would have used this or did use this? I mean, just to think that was a good decision, I can't imagine that was a good decision, especially the way the generations and lower income people and so many people are dependent on public transportation. It may not be a huge need in Snyder Township today, but I guarantee it's a growing need.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Snyder Township decided it wasn't, they did a cost per person per trip, and it wasn't utilized a lot. They were open to, if they got more people involved, that they were open to re-entering it. They weren't totally negative, but they looked at numbers and decided it wasn't
That's
worth it.
basically how they all make their decision, is based on the budget and numbers.
I mean, the article that I read didn't indicate that they had reviewed those numbers at all. It just sounded like opinions of the supervisors.
Well, they're looking at their budgets, and their numbers, what they have available.
Yeah, that from their budget, I got that, but I don't know that they even reviewed what the utilization was in the period of time.
They had opinions.
Yeah.
And Duncansville did the same thing about 15, 20 years ago.
Oh.
They dropped it. Route 8 used to go through Duncansville and Hollidaysville.
I don't know.
And Duncansville decided they weren't going to pay in
There
anymore.
is that.
So to this day, Duncansville still don't have bus service. And it was the same idea, and Duncansville was even more heavily used than what Snyder Township.
Yeah.
My concern in Snyder Township was the bus was stopping at the hospital, because the hospital's not inside room, it's in the township.
Correct.
And that stop has now been lost.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people who might have been taking the bus to get medical services there have lost that.
Yeah, would we, as a planning commission, want to send them a letter to say, we recognize the decision was made, but we would like to ask you to reconsider it? Or do we feel like that's not something that we do? I don't know.
It's within our purview.
I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, it's certainly within our purview.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Do you want
People
to,
can't use it if it's not there.
Yeah, they'll never know how
How
much.
well it would work or not work if it's not there.
Yeah.
do you want to vote on that? To send it or not?
That's up to the board.
So we're gonna make
What was
a
the question?
motion.
Do we,
I
we should
make a
send a
motion
letter
that
asking
we send them a letter asking
I'll
them to
move.
revisit.
That we do that?
Well, that's what he just moved.
Oh, second.
Okay.
I'm missing out.
We have a motion on the floor to send a letter out to the, more than one township, or
No, just the one.
just the one? Okay. That they, look at this again and see whether or not they might agree to get involved with the Amtrak. And I believe I have a second.
Yeah.
Yep.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Dave, one of
Abstention?
the
So moved.
perspectives on that is the township is only looking at itself, not the whole,
picture?
the bigger picture of the other townships included. That might be a way, I don't know how to work that into impressing on them that,
All the municipalities.
Yeah, all
look
the
at themselves.
municipalities,
They don't
just-
look at anybody else.
May be able to change the fee so that it's a total fee that when it goes through that area. I don't know.
Hospital being a good example, though, of, nobody lives at the hospital, So, I mean, there could be people from Altoona that would like to utilize Tyrone Hospital, or
Yes.
people from Annis Township, or
From Tyrone.
from Tyrone, or whatever. And, if they're only looking at, residents' use, that, they're kind of missing the bigger picture of, there was
Exactly.
also a stop at near the Village Pantry. Well, that's a business. There's people from, whatever, probably Bellwood, that would like to go to the Village Pantry and could ride the bus there, but now they can't. So they're also limiting the businesses and that are in the area too. So.
That's very good. Oh, very good.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can draft a letter and send to the board so that you guys can take a look at it. I think that's a great idea, and definitely something that, we've done similar recommendations for corridor studies and traffic studies for areas that are of particular interest. So I think this is a good time to, if there is going to be a recommendation made, it's definitely us that should. So thank you.
I think that should be our role, to do that kind of stuff more often.
I have a question along the same lines. This past week, I was in Annis Township building to talk with Mr. Brown about the situation at the bus garage there in Bellwood. At the end of the day, and in the morning even, the buses drop the kids off at school, and then they head for their parking area. Their parking area is about, I'm gonna say 40 or 50 yards from the intersection. They grab the center lane, and people coming northbound on 220 use the center lane to make a left-hand turn on Stadium Drive, and it becomes a head-on situation. And I myself have noticed the bus drivers literally give no quarter They jump into that center lane to get into their parking area, and it's a real bad situation, very bad. I'd like to see a letter go to the state, because that's state highway, recommending that they do something. I understand they are looking at it, but the traffic study that they normally do takes a long time, number one, and number two, there's certain criteria. They want so many accidents, so much activity before they even consider it, and that's a dangerous situation.
You're thinking that a traffic light at the intersection of Stadium Drive and
Well,
East
I don't
Pleasant
know
Valley
if
Boulevard?
a traffic light would do it, possibly another lane, if they could figure that out, or force the bus garage into putting another entrance on up the road. To come in on the upper side, would be the south side of the parking area. But it's a bad situation. For the average driver and above average skilled, I don't see a problem. But you get women, older people that get confused. It could be bad.
Strike that from the mirror comments, please. The question with that would be.
My wife,
What are you
I'm
saying,
talking
Kurt?
about my wife to begin with. She comes home, she's in a panic because the bus almost hit her.
Yeah.
And I've seen the situation. It's just, there's some people that can assess the situation and do the proper thing, but there are other people that can't. You get somebody confused there, that could be, somebody can get hurt.
So question about that, that there is not a traffic light at Stadium Drive and East Pleasant Valley Boulevard, correct?
There is not.
That's also a pretty bad intersection. I mean, kids leaving school in the morning, or I'm sorry, leaving in the afternoon, entering school in the morning, it probably would be a legitimate place for a traffic light.
Well, and then you got
to
that
turn
ballpark.
out onto East Pleasant Valley. Well, a lot of cars are going 60 miles an hour coming through there, and you're trying to pull out, and a lot of times you sit and you wait and you wait and you wait. Somebody's getting frustrated, they pull out, maybe they shouldn't have, or that would be a really legitimate place for a traffic light.
And then straight across from Stadium Drive is an
Baseball
entrance coming out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
And believe me, they get some traffic down in there. Bellwood area, Bellwood Ennis is a big baseball town.
It's just shy of 100 yards. It's in the center of Stadium Drive to the center of the bus garage parking lot. Yeah, Google Earth.
That's not, you get one bus or two buses.
That's,
That's
No,
not
it's
even-
really-
Lined up there together to turn in,
Yeah.
you've
You
taken
can't
out
see.
the whole turn lane.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
It's 300 feet. The bus is 50 feet long. That's a maximum of 6 buses.
Yeah,
I had a friend, his wife was killed at that intersection. It's a bad intersection. Because it's very confusing to some people. Years ago I drove tractor trailer. I've seen it all, I think. But there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that are not, we'll call them skilled
What's the other
drivers.
square? Oh, that's just a measure.
I use that term loosely.
That's it right there. There's Stadium Drive and there's the buses.
Do they have a student driver teacher there?
Pardon?
Do they have a student driver teacher at Bellwood Ennis?
They have student drivers.
Do they have a teacher there?
Like, do they teach driver's
that
ed?
teach driver's ed?
I can't hear you.
Do they have a driver's ed teacher at Bellwood Ennis?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
I'd be curious there. How do they teach the kids, getting in and out of there?
That's a good question. I
Yeah.
was going to bring that up once before, but I didn't do it. I thought this was a good time to bring it up. I'm hoping that the state will do something there because it's dangerous.
I mean, do you want to send a letter to PennDOT and ask them to review that intersection?
Yes. Any other discussion on this?
I think it'd be a good idea.
Well, we're starting our
Good
comp
idea.
plan too, so that would be our meetings are tomorrow.
It's definitely
So
a safety interest, so.
Yeah, Bellwood asked, comp plan's getting kicked off, so it'd be a good time to.
Can I
Plus
make
putting
that
a signal
motion?
light there will help slow down the traffic.
You're a voting member.
I make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and properly second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved.
Just to
Thank
confirm,
you.
this is Pleasant Valley Boulevard at Stadium Drive,
East Pleasant Valley.
East Pleasant Valley.
220 North.
Considering the fact that there is a ballpark there also.
Yeah,
which you-
absolutely.
Yeah. There must be, I'd say there's probably 18 or 20 buses minimum that end up in there. Plus, they run some commercial buses out of there too.
Isn't it, that's Racetown Transit, right?
Yes.
Pardon?
It's Racetown Transit.
That's Racetown Transit, right?
Yeah, maybe they ought to be contacted to see if they can
I just,
eliminate or alleviate the situation.
they come around the corner and they don't even try to get up the road. They just automatically grab that center lane. And somebody coming northbound, the turn signal on, now you've got a head-on situation. And if you get a car behind that car that got in the center lane, now the center lane has to come back out.
I can't see it.
You got a dangerous situation there.
Wouldn't be fun pulling out from Stadium Drive in a school bus either, you know.
No, it's a bad situation all the way
They're
around.
gonna pull up to the stop sign and sit and wait and wait and wait, and then they're gonna, you know, so, I mean, you know, all around, having a red light there would probably improve traffic flow. You know.
I would think so. It would make it safer anyhow, but- Yeah, I've seen some people pull out there
When they shouldn't.
when they shouldn't,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, some people
I mean, I
turning
just
left
live
on
two-
Stadium Drive.
I live 2 blocks from there, so I see it a lot.
And there's only one entrance into there, right? So if they
In-
did an entrance and an
There's only one
exit
entrance.
and brought the exit out on the Stadium Drive
It's the entrance
intersection,
exit for the buses, yeah, one, and it's only, 80 yards, would you say?
100.
100 yards, center intersection to center of intersection.
So if they made an entrance above and then exit out on that way, they wouldn't block that intersection specifically.
Storage for more buses.
Yeah, if they take that bus parking area and put an entrance
Right.
up here instead of down here.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That should have never materialized to begin with. The buses used to stay in the back of the school, but then, and I don't know when.
Yeah, but they're contracted, it's now a separate entity because
Yeah, it is.
Williamsburg uses Racetown Transit, they have a bus garage in Williamsburg that they run buses back and forth between the Williamsburg garage and the one in Bellwood all the time for work and maintenance. Yeah, they almost need to go to the south end of the parking lot and put an entrance at the south end of the parking lot, but you're getting close to the river at that point. It's
Yeah,
whether it's even possible to put an entrance in and out of the parking lot there.
I understand that's a problem because the bridge is right there. You don't go very far there.
Yeah.
You're on the bridge.
Does that also flood on that side?
The bridge runs underneath, the water runs underneath the 220 highway.
It's a flood zone now, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on the south side, you're saying that would flip it.
That's on the south side, right?
That's almost here. This is where the river
Oh,
is, so this is
okay.
all flooded in here.
And I'm not trying to cause a problem for the bus, for Racetown Transit. It's just an unsafe situation there.
We got that done.
Wes, you got that letter? Wes? Got that letter?
Okay, moving on.
Questions from the
The
meeting?
Planning Commissioners Forum. We don't have
That's
Amy
what
here
that
today.
is.
Any
Yeah.
questions from you all? I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Rhonda flipped that. We were trying to move the county commissioners up to number 4. And that's where we'll make that change. Instead of planning commissioner, it should have
That
said
should say
county commissioner
Yeah.
there. That way she can go to her board meeting at 10. So I think we just needed to strike that off.
Well,
of
15 is supposed to be
number
what we just
4.
did,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
actually at
Should be
16.
you guys.
Yeah, we just did number 15.
Yeah, that's
our
you
Planning
guys.
commission form is anything
It's
that you
number
guys
4.
want to bring up that we might not be aware of.
Yeah.
Like a letter to Snyder Township or the
Okay,
bus barn.
all right.
So it's with the
Walt, do you have anything?
I just want one thing, Sherry, I missed Ryan's last name, the guy from Stewart.
Countryman, exactly how it sounds.
Countryman.
Man, yep.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need.
You have your list of announcements. Any questions on them? Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Motion on the floor, second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion is adjourned. I get to use that.